describes acts of extreme violence in graphic detail and may include discussions about demonology and the occult, topics that caused widespread panic during the 1980s. This content may not be suitable for children under the age of 50. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
And welcome to, welcome to Grog Talk. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are on this planetary orb that is spinning around
out of control
and around a medium star, middle-aged star. I'm James, and joining me as my co-conversationalist is Menyon, also known as Rob. How are you, sir, today?
I'm very well. Oh, that's weird. I just had the coming back through time. I've got Grog Talk on another window, and it was starting to say what you had said about 30 seconds early, 15 seconds early. That just threw me a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm fine, I think. Until that happened, I was fine.
Yeah, you got to turn that off, or that will mess with you. It's kind of like we have a delay, because just in case you say something profane, I don't want to be banned by the regulators. Here it's the FCC. I'm not sure what the Japanese censor group is, but I don't want an international faux pas to happen. So it's good to see you. Long time
Hello.
no see. I've been doing crazy renovations. We had a storm a number of months ago, and after getting quotes, I've decided to do it myself because I'm not working as much. And then I realized I'm an old man, so it's taken twice as long and half as done. But it's coming together. I hope over the next few months things will be pretty much back to normal here. But we're kind of a bunch of crap just piled up in everywhere. So today's show, first I want to go over, because we are but 90 days away, or less than 90 days, from GrogCon 25, September 19th through the 21st, in Orlando. We're less than 3 months away, and in the links here, there will be a link for you to submit a game. The way we're doing this year is I created a Google form for folks. If you want to run a game or a session at GrogCon, you put it in this Google form. I'm going to submit it all to the main system. Please have them in by July 1st. If not, you can do it later, but it won't be up and available for people to register till later. We're planning to post that where folks can register for your event and all events at the same time. We're shooting for July 15th, but keep on Discord or X or Facebook or one of the other social thingies to keep abreast of where that is. If you run 2 games, you will get a GrogCon 25 t-shirt. If you run 4 games, your ticket I will buy. I will use my own money. These are not free tickets. I will use my own hard-earned Imperial credits to buy them, and you will get a special limited edition shirt. So it's very exciting. We're making a lot of progress getting ready for this. And obviously, if you are a patron of Electrum or higher, you get to go on my dime as well. Please message me in Patreon if that is of interest to you sometime before August 1st, because I need to buy those things and get those shirts ready, because they don't magically appear. I will bring some extra shirts. I'm not bringing a bunch because I've done that many times, and I end up with lots of extra shirts. So, if you want me to order your shirt, there's an old saying, in God we trust, all others pay cash, and you will have to send me money to bring that. So, Rob, you were actually part of one of the planning meetings, the first planning meeting. You I think you were a little nervous based on the themes that we were coming up with. Is that a fair assessment of your reaction to some of the thoughts for GrogCon 25?
Oh, let me cast my mind back.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have warned you about this.
Yes.
Good. Well, let me remind you that some of the comments, some of the thoughts were we had done against some other giants last year, and so we were going to do some kind of parody, and we thought about the Tomb of Horrors and doing some kind of Tomb of Horrors, and let's just say it went anatomical and horrific at the same time. So, while I found that very humorous, I didn't. It was almost like Mad Libs, where you pick a body part and a eldritch horror and put them together. And so I didn't get a whole lot of support for that. But anyway, fast forward, Ron Christopher, who is writing the tournament adventure, came up with a theme, and we've embraced it. And I've revealed it on Discord and that. But for those who don't go on Discord or X or anything else, I will now show you the theme for this year. It is GrogCon 25, a menagerie of horrors. That's right, folks. I love AI. It makes me look more and more like Sean Connery every time, because originally I had my little outfit, my Emperor outfit, and then it kind of made me a Greek Sean Connery. Now I just look straight up Sean Connery. So that's supposed to be me. It's clearly not me, but I'm going with it. So Menagerie of Horrors, as I was commenting to Rob, if you've been to a GrogCon, you've seen the Menagerie of Horrors. We're just now codifying it here for everyone. So what's your thoughts on Menagerie of Horrors?
Oh, I haven't had time to think about it, but I thought we were going for something like the colon of chaos, wasn't it? It was a bodily function sort of theme, wasn't it?
Well, there was. It was supposed to be like the sepulcher of sphincters. There was the tomb of bodily colons or something. Yeah, it was truly childish. And really the challenge was I was going to go with the sepulcher of sphincters, but asking AI or a Indonesian contract worker to generate a burial place for sphincters is not as easy as you would think. It's hard to visualize that. Oh, we lost Rob. Where'd he go? Rob, where are you? Oh, he's gone. He's coming back.
I'm back. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there.
That's okay. No problem. But you're back. It's par for the course. There's always some kind of blow up with this. You are halfway around the world. So,
so the difficulty in inputting the colon of chaos, if you want to do that,
right?
Or the
sepulcher of sphincters, the tomb,
whatever else it was,
right? The tomb of whatever. Yeah, it didn't have the visual quality. It's hard to put on a T-shirt, sphincters. I'm just saying, it's not as easy as you think. Yeah. So, plus, Ron, I think you've met him. He's more of a straight shooter. I'm not saying he's a Pollyanna, and I'm probably more Pollyannish than him, but I don't think he was enamored of trying to weave a story together in the tournament about sphincters. So, we've gone with the Menagerie of Horrors. All right, excellent. I'm glad you're coming. And yeah, so the games will be available for registration.
You have somebody coming?
Yep, someone is coming besides me. That's right. And the Chamberlain of Australia, who is going to win this year's I Traveled the Farthest for this Menagerie of Horrors contest. I'll have to get him something special for that. Traveling all the way. I don't know who's running Australia in my stead. I should probably talk to him about, does he have a viceroy of running Australia? Because I don't want it to be left without. So, anyway, we're raring to go. Things are moving forward. We're very excited about that. And, if you are interested, go out to grogcon.com. That's what it has the link to QuestCon, which is the bigger convention we're part of. You can it has your rates for your hotel, and you can submit your event if you would like to run an event. If you run 2, you get a shirt. If you run 4, it's on me. Again, you will pay for it first, and then I will provide the funds, Zelle, or whatever the case may be. And you can then see the list of that. So, with that said, please if you like this mess, please like and subscribe. Rob and I are always impressed that when someone thinks this is actually entertaining. So, what came up with today's topic is I was thinking about this because I forgot. Maybe I was looking at some games that have come out recently, and again, I don't have the patience to do new rule sets, not because they're bad or indifferent. It's just, it's why I haven't learned another language, because I just don't have the patience or capacity. I would, if I had a Matrix way and they could plug it into me, that would be great, but I really don't have that. So, but there was this idea. I was actually talking to my son about skill sets and this and that, and somehow we started talking about these things called NPC classes, which, that idea, which is, I'm not sure it survived the early games. I played a couple of things of 5th edition. I don't remember them being NPC classes. So I don't know, Rob, if you recall any other games that sort of
editions
developed that. I mean, maybe in 2nd edition, but certainly not between second.
Possibly 3rd edition. I think everything has to have a class and a level, even like citizens and stuff like that.
Oh, you're right. They had to stat everything out.
I suspect they had some kind of NPC class system structure, underneath that. But 2nd edition, I imagine, I really, the memory doesn't. I can't recall anything, but it wouldn't be surprising if they had something, because it would just slot into the pre-existing sort of AD&D structure, wouldn't it?
Right.
That being said, they had the kits back in 2nd edition, which were kind of like ways of adapting the base classes to and sort of changing the abilities around a little bit in that. So, was there a great need for it? I don't know.
Yeah, and so when I started with 1st edition, and one thing I did, I studied the Holy Trinity at the ripe young age of whatever it was, 12 or 13 or maybe 11, I don't remember. And I remember seeing, first is I remember seeing the Sage in the DMG and the Alchemist. It mentioned about these things, but it had nothing about them. They weren't a class. But the Sage had different levels of proficiency, right? You always wanted to find the most seasoned who had, the most domains that they knew, and they were experts. But it really, clearly there was, by inference, a class that party members couldn't be, right? Because you had to seek these sages out. You had to seek these alchemists out. You could kind of extrapolate that to the sappers and the miners and all these other. They weren't secondary skills, but they were henchmen or hirelings. And so, obviously when I started playing and I started subscribing to Dragon Magazine, that's when I started to see the proliferation of NPC classes, right? So we talked before that, there's a list of them that kind of started, and we were going to do kind of a survey. But before we get into it, did you use NPC classes in your campaigns? Do you recall?
Use them. Good question. I'm trying to think. I intended to. Let's see. I may have used the Dreamer and the Alchemist and the Necromancer to some degree, but I don't remember if I really used them as like full-blown NPCs. I may have just sort of poured over it and used some of the abilities, toyed with it in that way.
And you You subscribe to White Dwarf, or did you subscribe, I assume, or did you get...
Oh, we just picked them up from the shelf at
Gotcha.
wherever it would have been, probably W.H. Smith's or somewhere like that, and you would pick up a copy. And of course, there was a point, where White Dwarf moved away not only from D&D but also from its own role-playing games after a certain point. At which point, I switched, and a couple of us switched over to Dragon, which was then became available. It was almost invisible back in the day,
Right.
and you could only get White Dwarf from a few other kind of British magazines. But I remember at some point, oh hey, they've got Dragon magazine. It was just a big, thick magazine as well, and in this very interesting format. The paper was different. The size of the pages in America are different, by the way, as well. So it was a different kind of size and format, and it was heavy. It's quite substantial. So I shifted over to that, which is where I would have seen the Dreamer and some of these other NPC classes.
Yeah, I don't remember some of them. I mean, you mentioned them. I'm like, okay. So what I've done for our benefit is started with some of the beginning ones because, we mentioned the Alchemist. So the first reference in Dragon is actually in Dragon issue 2. So this is the second.
Right.
And this is not a NPC class. This is an actual character class you can be. And I don't know how well you can see it, but basically it says wisdom and intelligence must exceed 12, even though their prime requisite is wisdom. They're neutral. They can only have a maximum armor class of 5. They attack like clerics. Anyway, so it has some things, and basically, if you look down through it, it has on the table, it has kind of like thief-like abilities: detect poison, neutralize paralysis, identify potion, which of course, really that's kind of was a big deal right back then. In that, you're right, back in the day, the only way you could identify them was take a swig and see what happens. This is treated just like a class, and then special abilities. They can make drugs. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Can I be one of these?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, not in real life, of course,
right.
As a player.
Well, they've got. Then they have alchemist potions that they can make, which. I love this one, homunculal creation, level 4.
Yeah, amazing.
Our dear friend, the Chamberlain, who mentioned, who was the only person who reminded me that mending had some value, because again, that was a joke for years. What did you do with mending? And he put this comment when Dan and I were doing the show. And he's like, and of course we don't know who Dan is, but that other person who'd been remained nameless. He put you have to use it for homunculus, and we looked it up and we couldn't believe it. So apparently, if you were an alchemist of, let's see what level to cast fourth, you don't have spells, you have potion level. So you have to be looks like
that's fascinating. That's fascinating. What they've done here with the skill system is, instead of spells, you've got these skills which slot in, these kind of magical abilities that slot in just like a spell.
Yep.
The spell system. It's a very clever way of doing it, really.
So they've got So anyway, this is excuse me. It's just so funny because this issue is so old. How old is it? Sorry.
Really old.
That it, this was still back when all weapons did D6, so they had an optional weapon damage.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Yeah.
What year are we talking about here? So we're still in original D&D.
1976.
All right, that's before it's before AD&D even. The first the Monster Manual.
In fact, they're
1977.
announcing Supplement 4 at this time. The last.
Oh wow, that's incredible.
Could have got it for $5. There you go. So that was the first stab at Alchemist. I'm sorry. Do you have any thoughts on that besides what you said?
No. But it's a kind of it's a bit of a segue into something that we probably want to save until later. But just the idea of players playing these NPC classes. So does it specifically state that it is for NPCs only?
No, this says player characters.
Oh, okay, right. So we know, like in strategic review, we had the ranger. I believe it came out for strategic review because, of course, you only had 3 classes. That was then, and then the thief jumped in, and then we had other classes coming in these different supplements. But in its strategic review, I believe, had the ranger definitely, and I'm not sure, maybe the illusionist. Could be wrong with that. But this idea of like bringing in characters was, I guess, my understanding is Arneson had the merchant class, which sounds bizarre, but that was actually brought back in. I think we had that as an NPC class, perhaps in Dragon or in White Dwarf. But it's also a class in Beckme D&D, or basic D&D as well. In one of the Mystara guidebooks, the I forget what they're called.
Yeah, the Gazetteers.
The Gazetteers, right? As a player class. So
interesting.
It's interesting that you got this kind of this desire to have a class for everything.
Oh, that was another thing. I was watching a review of a modern game, and they were talking about cooking, and it's like, why are people wanting to do things about cooking? Well, obviously there must be an audience for cooking, and that kind of brought this back to the NPC class. I understand
delicious in dungeon. Do you know that?
Well, apparently that's a thing. We tend to think of it as a
cook the monsters.
Right. You kill them and then you cook them. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the thing that brought it up for me too, was this idea of having these not what I would consider ancillary classes, when really most people want to go, well, at least I do, want to kick doors down and shoot orcs in the head or blow them up, or vice versa, fight demons, not prepare souffle and get experience points for that. So the next one on the list that we saw, hold on. So thanks, John, for that. Appreciate it. Yeah, they were a lot of fun to do. So the next one is, this is the first time this is Roger Moore. This is issue 45. So this is now fast forward almost 4 years. I think this is 1980 or 81. And it says NPCs for hire, one who predicts. So this is an astrologer. And it basically says, similar to a wizard or a sage, if you want to retain them, and you have to spend a lot of money for their libraries so that they can, if you have enough money and you want a kept sage, you can ask them questions. You have to provide them with the accoutrement so that they can do their work, and it's expensive. Here they need all kinds of an observatory, a living space, a library, and it's a minimum of 20,000 gold pieces.
Wow. So just like the alchemist, really,
Yeah.
If you want these people in your back pocket, the access to their abilities, you need to pay out the money to have them at your beck and call.
Yeah, and this one, they can cast at the DM's discretion minor spells, and they really don't go up in level. That later NPC classes had levels. They were more. They were. It's again giving stats to deities, right? If you give stats to deities, parties are going to want to fight and kill them. Well, if you give experience points tables for NPC classes, people are going to want to run them. And we're going to see that later in some of these other ones. So, then it talks about the horoscopes. You could, and then of course they want you to be careful about precognition because it could unbalance the game. Well, I mean, that's a little late. It's kind of, you kind of if you're going to let this in, you got to be careful already. It's like augury. Augury is a second level spell. And of course, the characters want to know everything, for a second level spell. They want to know, how many monsters are behind the thing versus, it's really supposed to be very generic wheel or woe thing. But here, of course, they would want to know to the detail. And is there a money back guarantee? That's my question. If they get it wrong, I don't know. So it was very interesting. Like you said, you could pay to have this kept astrologer with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's very flavorful. I love the idea of some of these classes, but again, I mean, even if it doesn't have the experience points tables, and why have experience points for an NPC anyway?
Right.
You're already sort of paving the way, as you say, to play a card.
I'm just checking to make sure things are.
So this is the first appearance of the alchemist as a class,
as an NPC
class
right.
in the Dragon magazine.
Right, exactly. And this is one done by Roger and Georgia Moore, as opposed to the previous person who did it. So, and this one is again NPC class, and it it doesn't. It's not as cool as the other one. The other one had special spells. This just really focuses on. They can do some transmutation, toxins. I like they do biogenesis. Basically, they create golems and cockatrices and stuff like that. So,
oh wow,
I thought that was interesting.
Which dragon is this? Did you say?
This is Dragon 45. So
45. Okay.
This is January of 1981.
And the other alchemist was in number
issue 3.
two. Issue 3. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, number 2. I'm sorry. You're right. Number 2. So
sorry, a little hangover, people. So if it sounds like I have no idea what I'm talking about, then
it's okay.
It's actually true, and that's a very good observation. Yeah, I'm a little hungover. Interesting. Yeah. So why did they feel that they had to revisit The Alchemist? I wonder.
That's
just so many episodes, so many issues ago that everybody had lost it.
Yeah, or it's been years later, and they're like, you know what? We need to bring up The Alchemist again. Because guess what? 4 issues later, there's another alchemist.
Well, it's a recipe, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it says a recipe for the alchemist. Yeah. This now is a subclass of magic user. So now this is a player character again.
Well, I thought it was very strange that they attacked as a cleric before. That seems very, very generous, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, especially in the old school game, that they were definitely they had a better fighting than I'm pretty sure the magic user. I mean, it's always been fighter, cleric, thief, magic user. Before there was no thief. So in old school, before the supplements, you're right. So. This one's from issue 49, and this is from Len Lakofka. And he makes this an obscure subclass. Oh, it says there's always a player character, as the rules indicate. Okay, so I don't know why, again, 4 months after Roger Moore does his, he feels like he has to do his. And this goes sort of back to the first one, because he has, like the Thieves' Table, these proficiencies of identification, poison, the type of difficulty, the potions that they can make. So,
all right. So this is interesting. So the first one we saw, we had the skill system working almost like spells. It was basically a plug-in system that fit into that kind of format of a spellcaster. This time, it's using the thief skills, a percentage system. Inspired by the thief class.
Yeah, so
quite like you said, take.
If if he or she's 11th level, they have an 88% chance to create a 4th level difficulty potion or ointment in this case.
Mm-hmm.
But they still can cast spells apparently.
Okay.
But they cast. I don't know if they can cast all their spells.
Access to magic user spells. Is it?
That's basically what this is. So they do a little bit of both, and that's always the challenge with these NPCs. Sometimes they're cooler than a player character. I mean, it sounds to me, you don't get your first spell until the magic user is 2nd level.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just, on pure experience, the magic user becomes 2nd level at 2,500 experience points, plus or minus, right? So based on this chart, you have to be an apprentice, and you become 3,200. So the two things that stand out: one, your hit points are garbage. They're even worse than a magic user, because at least a magic user gets a 4 hit dice every level. Here, they get a D4, and then they get +2, which is slightly below average going forward. So they're not as good. But unless you roll terrible, then this would be better. But on average, you're going to have more hit points if you're a magic user, which is pretty scary. So this is, and then they have some kind of conversion table. Like if you're a pretty high level magic user, you can do most of the functions of an alchemist. So I guess that's how they get it there. He's trying to dissuade people from becoming an NPC class.
Yeah, by publishing one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, actually, I didn't read this whole thing, but look how many pages this is. This is longer than what's in the magic user thing in the player's handbook.
Well, this is the thing. If you look back at the class, even in the first edition AD&D player's handbook, look at the description for the fighter. Right. I mean, they get nothing.
2 paragraphs.
You get followers.
Right.
If you build a castle, you get a few, pieces of silver or something per person who lives in your town. How do you calculate that? No idea. But it's there. You get that. Great. So you can see these first classes like the thief and the monk that appear in other magazines or something, or they're pieces of fan literature, then they find their way into the rules.
Right.
Far more attractive than the original classes, until the original classes look kind of weak compared to a ranger or a paladin, or even the standard character classes that become player character classes in the standard rules. So it's a strange sort of patchwork system. At least the game that we play,
right.
The old version that we play, is a strange patchwork of these. The monk and so on. It's just like, why?
Yeah, exactly. And so, like you mentioned, Rob, you were more familiar with White Dwarf, and that was more accessible. Well, our research found there was a number of NPC classes, and I found, since my time doing this show and my delving into White Dwarf and the British D&D culture, because it was sort of isolated from the mothership in this case, the Midwest, they had a lot of latitude to do things, and there was a lot of creativity there. So there are multitude of NPC classes. And of course, one of the most famous or infamous, of course, is the Necromancer, which, what did you think about it when you first saw that?
Yeah, the Necromancer I probably saw. I wouldn't have seen it at the time,
right.
But I would have seen it in the republished version, in one of the best of White Dwarfs, along with the I don't know how you pronounce it, but the Hori class, who was like a dancing girl sort of courtesan
Oh, the Huri,
kind of
yeah,
thing,
the
which was
Huri,
very,
yeah.
very, very risque kind of class. But so these classes had all these abilities, and of course, yeah, we're talking about the necromancer here. The necromancer class was quite grotesque at the time. I don't think I really took on how grotesque it is, and a bit disturbing, because I suppose I didn't really, I didn't see the real life
Connotations of it, yeah.
connotations of what that meant. For me, it was just fantasy, and that was fine. But yeah, of course, people want to play it. It's got hit points, and it's got levels, and it has experience points. So of course, it's for players to play. Of course, somebody's going to want to play that. And I think we did actually. I think I did run one-on-one for somebody playing a necromancer. I don't think we got very far. I think it became quite boring, to be honest. I think it gets quite boring playing a totally evil character, but that's maybe another topic. But certainly they have all these abilities, and there's a lot of little hooks in the class that drive the character forward. So adventure hooks and things, just by dint, by the sheer fact that in order to progress, they need to do certain things, right?
Right. Well, and, of course, friend of the show, Lou Pulsifer, who's, a legend in the gaming, he came and described why he was doing this. And again, he made it very explicit. It wasn't a class, but he was kind of tongue in cheek with, that people used it. And, and the fact that, you got extra bonuses if you sacrifice virgins versus, just the normal trollop that you would find. And again, it's just amazing, and that it was published because, this is pre-Satanic Panic. And would have been, I don't think it would have been published in Dragon. I mean, especially maybe early on because they had a lot more latitude, but certainly not in the 80s. That would have been the
family,
end of it.
Yeah, I don't think White Dwarf was supposed to be family friendly, and I suspect that Dungeons and Dragons in Britain remained a more kind of a game
for adults
that was more aimed at sort of university students or adults. It was more a kind of unusual hobby. It was an unusual hobby in the corner of the hobby store that most people weren't aware of, and it didn't have that even in later years. I don't think it had that same kind of presence as it had in America. So I've heard there was a Satanic Panic in Britain as well, but just not in my town. I wasn't aware of it. I think it was only if you're a member of a certain kind of Christian denomination would that be a problem. I don't think your typical British person who didn't go to church, because most of them didn't, would be aware of it. And certainly even people who were probably Church of England denomination, the typical kind of Anglican wouldn't be aware of it because it just would not appear on the radar of that church. It just was not a topic. It wasn't necessary.
We saw,
to discuss.
Again, growing up in New York City, I didn't really know anything about it until I moved to Florida. I mean, I think the first time I really saw something of that, and I was a younger teenager, was when it was on 60 Minutes. That was the first time. And, I'm sure you've had this experience, like whether it's because, you have the same affinity for heavy metal or, fantasy things. It's like, oh, some mainstream thing is going to show my hobby, right? And you're going to get some recognition. And I don't know why you think it's going to go well, but it's going to go off. And sure enough, right?
Yeah, it's cringe. You realize you're just cringe-worthy.
Well, it's not like cringeworthy, but they make you feel more stupid as, it's bad enough we have these marginalized hobbies that make you get stuffed in lockers. And then they either, like we're the worst people and just, they totally don't get it. They don't understand. They've missed the whole point. We're not a bunch of satanic morons. Anyway, so it was similar disappointment when I saw that. And then, of course, Mazes and Monsters. That was the movie. Because, again, I thought, oh, this will be great. And, not knowing anything about it. And did you see Mazes and Monsters with Tom Hanks?
Yeah, sadly, yeah. See, it sounds like such a good idea, when you read it in the newspaper, on tonight.
Right.
You look, oh yeah, I'm going to watch that. Something about
So
that.
I'm like, oh, this is great. I think, I had it's 83, 84, it feels like, right? So I'm playing, I'm in it. And I'm like, they're going to make a movie about the game I love. And then it's just like, what is...
It's LARPing and...
what is this?
And sadly, sort of, mental disorders,
Right.
for want of another word. And it's kind of a sad story, very sad story.
It would be like us doing a hip hop, some kind of hip hop musical.
Yeah.
The total opposite of that, trying to get street cred.
Of that culture,
Right.
yeah, subculture or whatever,
Right.
yeah, and then just use that
Cultural
as a platform.
Tom Hanks culturally appropriated my culture. I am offended. I'm calling that guy up. Anyway,
well, we've kind of gone off the rails here, but it's an interesting topic. So can we do that? Can we do a little bit more? Because I think the first time that I really saw D&D being, I mean, we had a little bit of D&D in E.T. It appears a little bit in E.T., but it's more in the books than in the film. It's they're playing. I think when he first spots the alien, the extraterrestrial, and he comes back and he's trying to tell his brothers and friends about it, and they're all playing D&D, right? So there's a lot of D&D in ET, but I don't think it was fully really kind of expressed or represented until recently with that TV show.
Stranger Things, yeah.
Stranger Things. I mean, you can debate how realistic or it is to have a DM that animated, or a game that animated, but it does touch on the kind of feel, I think, and it was sadly lacking in anything before then.
Well, Brooks reminded me E.T. had a D&D thing. That's right. That was probably the most positive mass version of, that was in cinema it wasn't Tom Hanks' Mazes of Monsters. It wasn't 60 Minutes saying, if this book is in your house, you're going to be murdered by your child. So, that was probably one of the better versions of it. And of course,
Shakma.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I don't know that one.
Well, one thing I found was there was a British musical that was a D&D musical. I don't know if you remember. Dan and I pursued this, and actually, apparently, I found one of the people who was in it, and I didn't find the director, but I have some of the music from it, and there's never I never found anything more, but apparently, like, this was Sean Bean from the Game of Thrones was in this because it was so long ago. It was in the 80s or 90s, so it was I would have in our if I had unlimited money, I would produce that musical just to see it in England, wherever that play. I think I know I got where it was held. I would want the original cast, a 40-year reunion, kind of do that. That would be, if I had unlimited money, that's what I would do, because that would be amazing. Yeah, it's only been the last, 10, 15 years that it's pushed through. But a lot of people played it. It's just the people who took it seriously kept going, and then the people who were worried about it took it seriously. Most people, it was like Rubik's Cube. It was just part of their 80s childhood. They didn't move forward with it.
So back in the day, you got Sean Bean, and he's not even a level 1 entertainer.
Right.
But what level do you think he would be by now? And what's the class title for that?
Oh,
level?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know what entertainer he would be. Yeah, I mean, he's got to be name level, right? So,
right.
I guess there were.
Yeah, well, certainly, yeah.
Issue 69 has entertainer. So
You're making that up.
Nope. Here we go. I'm going to find it for you. Let's see. Issue
Wonderful.
69. Let's see. It could be an April Fool's joke. Oh, it's January 1983. Let's see.
60.
I'm going to have to try to find this. This is compelling streaming right now. Oh, this is when the Thief Acrobat, the entertainment class. Len Lakofka did this, page 54.
Wow.
All right, here we go.
Wow, I just made that up just to try and get us back on topic.
Oh, no. Here you go. Do you see this?
Incredible.
Do you
Yeah,
see
I
it?
do, yeah.
Okay, so look, the entertainments. Let them entertain you.
That's amazing.
So you could be a stagehand, juggler, acrobat, troubadour, showman, or entertainer. So I guess you would be an entertainer. You could have multiple alignments, and they have experience points. I don't know how I got out. I'm surprised not one of my players wanted not to play a juggler. I want to be a juggler. What do they do? I don't care, but I want to be a juggler.
Well, you have to wait until what level?
Let's see.
To be a Isn't juggler is that an actual class or?
Well,
It is. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So there's actually several different classes, isn't it?
yeah, you start as an entertainer, and then once you specialize, it looks like you have to have special skill.
Right.
I'm trying.
So this is like
you start
the
as a
Thief
stagehand.
Acrobat.
Yeah, exactly. This is the same issue that the Thief Acrobat came out. So you start as
Really?
a stagehand and you kind of move up, and then as your skills get higher, you can then specialize as Looks like the juggler's more dex, acrobats still dex, whereas the troubadour and entertainer are more charisma based.
So what level is Sean Bean?
Well, I'm gonna say he's
So let's put him at name level. What's his title?
well, level titles for jugglers, acrobat. I'm trying to see if they have one for entertainers. Oh, the command performance. Again, I'm just gonna have to say it's name level, so it looks like level 9.
Okay, at least.
Level 11. I'm sorry, entertainer. Level
Wow,
600,000.
he's just an entertainer.
Well, it's level
Okay.
11. It's
How did he get to those experience? I mean, that's a lot of musicals and.
dinner theater. It's the same thing of the cloistered cleric, right? The guy who writes scrolls. You spend enough time scribing scrolls, you're 15th level all of a sudden. Which again is so contrary to D&D, which was, players are risk averse, and if you give them a way to make experience without going for adventuring, of course they would do that. They'd be like, I'll just harvest experience points. So
we've got this profusion of classes appearing in the magazines. There's obviously a demand for it because it's a thing even before strategic review, even before the first magazine by TSR. That they have the zines and stuff producing these classes. We get to the point where they're just creating these classes. We've got the Thief Acrobat, which incidentally I think is the first. It predates the prestige classes. So the prestige class is a 3rd edition thing where you if you got to a certain ability level, you could then become a harper or whatever. You could become a sort of subclass of that. And that's essentially what they were kind of dabbling in with the Thief Acrobat. But what is the book that shall not be named? Or Unearthed Arcana, if I am to break a taboo, just for those who don't know what. But there may be listeners who do not know what that means. But the book that is a collection, isn't it, of these classes and ideas from Dragon Magazine that, for some reason, TSR Gary thought were worth. That we needed. Yeah, it was money. And it totally unbalanced the game, I believe, in my personal opinion. A lot of these rules. I think some of the magic items, yep, great. I'm happy with that. The spells, cantrips, really. So there's a lot going on in that book, particularly the classes and the the decisions about races that really, really, really throw everything.
Well, but but it's as that's why I've called it. May of 1985 is when AD&D became 1.5. All 2nd edition did was codify and clean up a lot of that. I mean, it didn't.
Yeah.
It's yes, when it first came out, it didn't have the barbarian and this and that. But by the time it was done, it was all there and everything else. I mean, it was all those things were there to stay, and the thing that was the big issue for our version of D&D. Because again, what I also discovered doing this show was for those who grew up with D&D before 1980-81, it was very loosey-goosey, right? It was completely, you made it up, loosey-goosey, but we really grew up with the canon of it, right? At least the way I played it. Those books, I call them the Holy Trinity, not facetiously. They were gospel. And the game was, and the official products were gospel. Dragon was kind of this, fever dream of people that you could do whatever you want. And our players knew you could ask, but it did not have to be done. When Unearthed Arcana came, that's when you couldn't say, I mean, you always could fall back on the DM. I say no, but you're now taking parts of the game away that were not, it wasn't like, psionics, which said optional. It would have been fine if it said, hey, these are optional rules, you take them. Great. No, this was canon. This was...
Yeah. As soon as it went into an orange spine book,
right,
it becomes part. And that's actually, this is when I joined the game. So I joined the game in, 85 or something. I started playing. So that I am the Unearthed, I think Unearthed Arcana and Oriental Adventures.
Yeah, you're a 1.5er.
These books were fresh, and people were playing mixed groups. We had people who were playing, was it Sohei, or I can't remember what the, Kensai and stuff like that. We had these characters walking with, sure. And I was a cavalier, and who's going to be a fighter, right? But it was fun. It was fun. It was complete chaos, all of these different rules, and it was probably very unbalanced.
But how different was that, right? You've got a Kensai next to a Daimu versus with a Drow Ranger Paladin, and yes. You're a half orc, barbarian, whatever.
It's like 5th edition already.
Right. It was 5th edition. People complain about, 5th edition because you can be a half turtle, half angel, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it was happening.
It was happening before, but it was okay because it was do-it-yourself. Again, Gary was very successful in making 1st edition his game, and his game was this was the way. This is the way. This, you may not understand the way, and it may be convoluted mess, but this is the way. You don't just, and the DM was supreme and everything else, and that all kind of blew away. So, it's funny that you mentioned that. I don't know did you ever see this Dragon magazine? I'm going to show you this. Dragon issue 121.
Oh, no, I think that's slightly before.
This is 1987. This is 1987.
Yeah, I think I started a little bit after this. I think I started in about 88 or something.
Well, the reason I bring this up, because I still was getting I think I still have this. So it's very Oriental focus, but they have the geisha class. Oh, no, he's gone again. Hold on just a second. I lost him. He'll be right back. He'll be right back. Just the thought of playing a geisha class caused him to lose it. Hold on a second. Try to connect. Let's see. Okay. Well, here he comes. All right, sir. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
It could be at my end. I'm just going to shut down. I've been playing YouTube as well in the background just to keep an eye on the comments, but I'll close that down in case it's
yeah, who knows?
An issue at my end. I'm just using a little laptop, so it could be. Sorry about that. Anyway, we were talking about the geisha. Interesting. I wonder what they've done with this.
It's presented as an NPC class, and it's not supposed to I love this. This means, I'm just reading here. This means the geisha cannot be used as a PC class unless the DM allows it. Why do you do this to the DM? The DM doesn't have enough to do. So here's the things the geisha does. It has music, singing, which is music like charm person. So it's kind of like a bard. It has singing like legend lore, flower arranging.
Wow! Watch out, monsters.
Brewer, masseuse. You can.
My goodness, yeah.
And
masseuse. I wonder if geisha.
Yeah, juggling, dance.
I'm not aware of geisha acting as masseuses actually, but yeah.
Well, again, welcome to 1987. So here's your homework. I know we've talked about Oriental Adventures a little bit and your thoughts on it, and we should do it again. But I want you, we're in no rush, but in a future one, read 121 and give us your.
121. Okay.
I'll send it to you in the link. I'll send you I'll send
excellent.
you the PDF, so you don't have to look it up. I'll send you the PDF, and again, for those who are listening, Menyon, aka Rob, lives in Japan. He lives near Osaka or in Osaka, correct?
Yeah, I mean Kyoto actually.
Kyoto, excuse me. I'm sorry.
The cultural capital of Japan. Yeah.
Yeah. Only reason I know that is because I watched Shogun on FX. That's why I also watched the original back in the '70s with Richard Chamberlain. Right. So there you go. That's my Japanese. Yeah, I'm an American. I only know history through TV. I don't have any experience throughout that anywhere else.
Well,
nor do I want to.
I mean, these things don't have to be. I mean, how culturally accurate is the druid or the bard or anything else?
Well, save your comments because I agree with you, but you've gotten a lot of thing for us. I'm looking forward to this. May bring back your podcast once you read this.
No, I'm not sure. I don't think I would want to open this can of worms. When I said I previously defended Oriental Adventures, and that was just the wrong thing to say at the point, that juncture in gaming history.
Well, you can say this here. But yeah, I will send you this. Again, only from, like you said, you're bringing up these comments that I would not know. I mean, I'm obviously, the geisha itself, the person, I won't call it a class, the type of position that is not as prevalent, but I mean, there was still, it made it to modernity, some version of it. So, it's, but again, what do Americans know? Whoever this guy was who wrote it, I'm sure he looked in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and this was 1987. He went down to the library.
He read James Clavell's Shogun.
He checked out the VHS tapes and watched them again and said, "Hey, this is it." So
I'm an expert. Yeah.
Well, they have levels too. So there you go. And just okay.
Level what? What did you say?
They can go up in levels, right? They can go up to.
Yeah. Okay.
They are level 1 is a Mako.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
And then, okay, this is a great heavy metal name. Iron Kimono. That's a 3rd level spell. That's all I got to say.
Iron Kimono. I'm sure that is a band. Let's check it out.
They've got to be.
If that isn't a band, somebody should make it.
Right. Iron Kimono. And now, live from the Budokan, Iron Kimono. That is amazing.
I don't know, but it's Iron Kimono Forgotten Realms wiki. It appears as a spell by the geisha, so obviously it's the same.
So I don't know if it's the same thing or they so now I've got you in. Okay, so that's maybe not the next time, but you're gonna review
Kimono.
120, and I'll read it as well. I'm not gonna.
That needs to be a band. That band needs
Iron
to
Komodo.
exist. So
Iron
bad.
Komodo. Well, if I really wanted to offend everyone, I could just pretend I was Iron Komodo and do like a baby metal meets old man rock, and that would be Iron Kimono, and I could dress up like.
Well,
How
as long
horrible
as
could
you
it be?
as long as you use AI and stuff,
Right.
you're good.
Yeah, I mean, based on what my kids, here's another segue. My son likes this show One Piece, which has been on for 25 years, and every girl portrayed there is anatomically not correct. I'll just say it that way. They have back problems in Japan based on this.
But you're from Florida, right? How can you say that?
Well, ours is because they've eat too much, not because they are.
Okay.
They go to the buffet. There, it's these girls portrayed are 4'7" and 80 pounds, and half of it is on their chest.
It's Baywatch. It's Baywatch
Right.
gone extreme.
It's Asian. It's Oriental Baywatch. So that's another good name of a band, Oriental Bay. Anyway, so that's your homework. 121. I will send that to you.
Thank you.
Anyway, so the one other one that I found very interesting going backwards. We have to go backwards to go forwards, and this is issue 5. Witchcraft supplement for D&D. Could you imagine this came out in the 80s, right? In America, the witchcraft supplement.
But this is Dragon, though.
This is Dragon number 5. So, and it talks about witches and, how they can be. And it's basically sort of a monster type. And what's interesting, they received this 15 months ago, and they don't know who wrote it, but they want them to. I don't know if they ever announced who actually wrote it. This is done anonymously.
That's amazing. But at least they actually asked for the person to come forward so they could credit them.
Yeah, they didn't just co-opt. They didn't just co-opt it.
Yeah.
So you've got priestess witchcraft, witch magic, black witchcraft, minor spells, a low order which may perform. So anyway, this is another one. Poison touch. Again, it's very old school. Secret Order of Witches. Could you imagine this coming out?
Yeah. Well, we say that, but look at Palladium. Do you remember Palladium? Did you ever flick through there?
Yeah.
The different classes. So that really embraced things like the demonologist and stuff. So, and that would have come out before, during, after, and after perhaps the Satanic Panic. So that's somebody raising their middle finger and saying, well, this is my homebrew AD&D.
Yeah, but
this is how
it's like it or not. I mean, yes, there were plenty of games like that. I won't call them cult games, but they were offshoots that were much more extreme. I mean, even today, right? Your Borgs or these Swedish death metal RPG games or dungeon crawl classics are more edgy, I'll call it. And edgy is a strong word. I mean, I'm an adult now, but they're not the vanilla. D&D is the McDonald's of role playing games, right? And I mean, even now, it's kind of middle of the road, and it kind of, in its own way, has amalgamated a bunch of things that are mostly benign. And you're unless you're a very extreme prude, where you have a problem with just the whole concept of anyone can be anything. You're if you're an ableist or whatever, that kind of thing. That's the offensive part. It's not you're not going to have women being sacrificed in modern AD&D. That's a problem, right? That would be edgy. Murdering children and using their fat to make potions. That would be, and I'm sure some of these other games sort of.
Isn't that an ability of
the necromancer?
Lucifer's necromancer,
absolutely.
level 5?
That's right. He's got to train for that. You don't just get that. You've got to find a higher level necromancer and defeat that. Thank you.
Sick. That's sick.
Thank you so much. I tried to. I try to throw in that was also from the Warlock, for those that reference, if I remember correctly. That's right. Palladium had the Diabolus Witch Demon Hunters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So people like this, people like that edginess. There's people who are going to make the Palladium is basically a rip off of D&D, and it's sort of taking it in a very specific direction. It's rewriting the rules in a way that was being played at somebody's table that was popular. But as you say, if you go back to the original rules or something, or even first edition, previous to the book that shall not be named anymore in this episode, you've got a much more stripped down game. Do you need these NPC classes? Like the way I still now, I quite enjoy the so-called OSR games because of due to their simplicity. So if I pick up a copy of White Box, Swords and Wizardry White Box or whatever, it's got the 3 classes in there. And it says under the monster descriptions, or the monsters or NPCs do not have to have a class and a level. Just give them a hit dice or hit points, and whatever abilities or spell-like abilities or spells that you want. They don't have to follow the same rules. Fantastic, right? So in other words, my alchemist does this. My NPC, and it doesn't have to be true across the board of every alchemist in your world. Yeah. So when you create, and I think that's a beautiful way of running the game for many reasons. One, it's really simple for the DM, particularly aging DMs like ourselves, don't need to keep so many things, different moving parts in their head all at once. That's one factor. Another factor is that the players really don't know what that elf does. They don't really necessarily know what alignment they are or how they're going to react. They don't know what abilities that this creature has. So keeping things unstatted or uncodified, is that a word? Uncodified.
I like it.
It is great in a way because it keeps the game as an unknown quantity, which really, when you think about when you first got into the hobby, that was what was exciting about it. You didn't know what the monsters could do or what was behind that door. And all you had was a description, right? When you first start the game. Can I be a cavalier? Sure. You just run it as a fight.
Okay, I want to be a fighter, but I want to come from a seafaring people, and I've been accused of a crime, and now I'm on a pirate ship. Oh, you want to be a pirate? Yeah, I want to be a pirate. Okay, well, what does that mean? And you work it out.
You're a thief, or you're a fighter, or whatever you want to be.
Yeah, if you want to, or if you don't want to use that class, so the problem with that, I'm not disagreeing with anything you say, is that D&D is a class-based system, and because it makes it challenging versus if it was a skill-based system. Because if it was a skill-based system, it'd be very simple. You could just pick the skills you wanted to do, and if you wanted to call it a kit, so be it. I mean, that's always been the push and pull of D&D, is it has these classes, these archetypes. So if you don't have the archetype, you can't play this thing. But then if you start losing it, then why have classes? And so that's always the push pull of that. But your point of hey, do I really need 10 pages on Alchemist? Right? It's the same thing with third edition. I've never played, but I played. I took this mega dungeon and ported it back to Beckme. So that's another story. It's great if someone did all the work, because it's lovely to see the stat block for a Wraith, right? It's got all the stuff and all their abilities. But if you had to create that from scratch, what a pain in the butt that would be. Statting every NPC, statting and all their feats and all this and that and all this other stuff. It's incredible. So, like you, I would rather just say, you see Bob the Alchemist. He's there. He's and you have some idea of what he's doing, and they say, hey, can you make me a love potion? I don't know. We'll see. And if you break the game, you can nerf it later. Say, this is the ruling for today. Well, this is the ruling for today, right? That you can that it works like human control, and you've all of a sudden you've now made this ridiculous. So they buy 50 potions, and they're going around, and they've controlled the whole town. Okay, well, that was that session. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. They can't break. They can't break the campaign in one session typically. But yeah, that's always the push and pull on that. Oh, let's see. Looks like hold on.
On there, I don't know if that was me or.
I'm going to disconnect you and connect you back. Hold on.
Okay.
All right. He looked like he got taken over again. So. Anyway, he should be joining us in just a second. Hold on. Okay.
Oh.
There you are. You're back. Yeah. I can't connect you back. I don't know why I said that. I can just boot you off.
Can you see the picture? I don't see my.
No, you still
video.
you don't look that great. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's strange.
All right.
Nobody needs to see me anyway. So that's fine.
I'm just gonna hide your. It looks like you were melted or something. So I apologize. But so the last thing we had was really the one. Was of course besides the Necromancer, the one that was most infamous was the Deathmaster, which came out in issue 76. So here's a picture of the Deathmaster, very similar to a Len Lakofka. And the reason I want to bring this one up to you is Len's treatise, which I think is a good discussion. So in the beginning of this, he says, a magic user monster to play against, not as. As corny as it may sound, I believe the theme of AD&D system is the struggle between good and evil, is commitment to learn team action over individual play, which is how most old schoolers who want to win like it to be. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Oh, is he gone? Did you hear me? Oh, now he's gone. Oh, let's see if he comes back. Let's see if he comes back. He is halfway around the world. The fact that we got it working this long is pretty impressive. I can hear you. Hello? I don't know why your camera's still jacked up. I don't know why.
No, don't know. It could be my end. Quite hot here, so maybe just my computer is burning out something in its circuitry.
Okay. Well, I was saying, I don't know how much of that you heard of my thing. I was reading the Len Lakofka thing, and it basically, he's talking about that his version of the game is a team sport. Everyone is good because it prevents rogue people from doing things and not being efficient in completing the game. And that, when I talked to him, he did the same thing.
He did. He mentioned that. I remember that. Yeah.
So what's interesting, he keeps going, and the party becomes stronger, blah, 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 blah. And this is where he says something that I've always thought was interesting. The AD&D game should not have assassin player characters. In fact, no player character should be evil at all unless adverse magic affects them. Yet many players will have their characters turn evil at first opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, anyway. The idea
Robilar, right?
Right, exactly. Is really the assassin, the way it's described in the player's handbook and the D&D, is it really, should it just be an NPC class?
It's an interesting thing. I think it's obviously not intended that way, at least as presented in that book, in the player's handbook. But I think they have something. There's something there. I think, you can have great adventures as anti-heroes and having, with evil characters. And in fact, in David's game,
right,
the elder guy, I'm playing a half-orc fighter assassin, who's lawful evil, and he's a very strong team player. Dedicated to the defense of his city state, and uses his abilities to the utmost to ensure the safety of his group and also the city state. He's a bad guy, but he's a good to have on your team.
Right. So my argument why I think it should be an NPC class is primarily not what's in the player's handbook. I mean, it's sort of. And the other classes, the other class, the thief, has a little bit of this too, is that if taken to the extreme, unlike the other, so let me start with this. Except for the cleric is the only class that really has an out-of-adventure requirement, and the paladin, right? I mean, they have to tithe, they really have a church or some religious order they got to kind of do stuff, and you could really do a lot of time suck, which is also could be outside the party dynamic, right? That could be done separately. The thief and the assassin, right? They got to be part of a guild, and they got to go up through the guild, and they have that dynamic. And the assassin's even one off because it has, when the DMG comes out, it has spying, disguises, assassinations. You can plan these, like you said. I know one time you discussed the assassination attempt. And those skills tend to promote individual play, and the other classes typically don't get those until they get followers or strongholds, which is name level. And the inference was that once they got to that level, they really should be thinking about retiring. That, even though they allow people to play higher level, the game itself is really meant from like 1st to 10th or 12th level. It works best that way. And that's been consistent for the last 50 years. So that's my argument. And besides, it's law, they're evil. Yeah, I mean, you're playing a certain type of, you're really playing the paladin of assassins, right? The one type of assassin that will work. Every other assassin will devolve into a party wrecking, murderous.
Well, I'm metagaming, right? I'm playing a team game. So you're playing a type of character. If you're going to play evil character, you have to make it work for the game. And if it's going to wreck the game, then that's not fun, So I'm metagaming it.
But that to me is the argument, against the assassin.
Yeah. It's a good argument, I think.
And to the thief, again, there's parts of the other classes that I have a problem with because I'm not a fan. When I was younger, I had more time. But I've said on this show, I loathe out of session work. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do a solo adventure where you go, or the character, because you are a man of unusual, have unusual talents. The adventure is over, and the prince or the king slighted you all, and you decide, I got a 50-50 chance of killing him. I'm going to plan out and assassinate him, poison him, so that I can't be tied back to the party. And you're evil, so you could be selfish. That's not, in your mind, you're not putting the party at risk per se, right? If I get caught, it was me doing it, and maybe I leave him a note, whatever the case may be. That's opening itself up for single-player shenanigans and nonsense that I don't want to deal with, where most characters, they're not going to assault the keep and try to, kill the Castilian because he wouldn't see you all and keep the borderlands kind of thing. That's my... But when I was younger, I was much more open to this. But the older I get, because the time at the table is so precious, I don't want people to screw around with things.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of problems with. I mean, we're moving off topic here, but there's all sorts of problems with alignment.
Well, I've
But
talked about that before too, and I'll give you my take again if you've forgotten. But yes, go ahead.
no, I'm just thinking. Well, there's benefits of having a good party. One of those would be something like having a paladin in your party or whatever.
Right.
But a way that you can lock that in to the game would be to say, well, the benefits of having a party that goes to a certain temple, worships the same god or has the same alignment, would be something, perhaps better access to the abilities of that temple. So typically the way it's written is almost like the temple provides healing at an expense, right? But what if it doesn't? What if you are a part of a community? What if you run the village of Homlet and the oh god, who's the guy with the cudgel? St. Cuthbert.
St. Cuthbert, right?
What if you all are members of this Church of St. Cuthbert for the most part, or maybe you follow the old faith with the Druids,
right?
And that gives you and you alone, or those party members who are part of that congregation, access to healing spells. How many players then are going to actually give a tithe to their Church of St. Cuthbert or whatever? I mean, I think you have to incentivize alignment and the deities and membership of a god, or a religion, I think, in the game, so that people actually start saying, "Yeah, I'm going to role play that." And they role play it.
100%. That is my take on it. Alignment outside of deities makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, so of course we're talking about NPCs. So we've got NPC clerics, perhaps. Do you want access to give access to raise dead and that? Well, yeah. I mean, and then that's a big argument for players to be human races, for example.
Right. I'm just just to summarize. It's in the deities and demigods. It's in the D&D DMG. This is not a agnostic world, right? There are. You accept dragons fly. Well, you accept there's these creatures that are exemplars of the alignments, and they live in the outer planes, and they manipulate the inner planes for their benefit. And that's the game that you play. You don't have to play it that way, but that's the default, and those are the assumptions that are part of it. And that you can be an atheist, meaning you don't like the gods, but you can't say, well, they don't exist. That's that's like saying gravity doesn't exist. They exist in this game. You may have different ones, but in this game, the clerics worship something. Now I guess in later editions they worship principles or some other nonsense, but in first edition and the games before, there are deities, and like you said, the alignment prescription of what lawful evil is because you follow Hextor versus or Grumpsh. They're both lawful evil, but they talk specifically about what lawful evil means to them. And the same thing with maybe St. Cuthbert. In the Greyhawk deities, St. Cuthbert and Hextor, they are vital, opposite opposing. And Ooze is another one that hates them. But other good deities may work or may not work out. So again, back to your point, you're a cleric, maybe a person of St. Cuthbert. Well, they should be trying to proselytize your people. That's, again, it's another point of contention and drama that you should be putting in. And most people don't want to deal with it. And then it goes back to, I just want to kick down the door and hit orcs. Do I really need to, proclaim my deity wants me to do this?
Yeah. If you want access to healing spells, yeah. So I mean, like that if you come out of the temple, if you're down on hit points, you then, instead of requiring the cleric, to always have heal spells, you can come out to the temple, and if you're doing a service to the village of Hobnet, they're going to give you these healing spells and stuff and get you back up. They're going to raise you. Maybe you don't have that level in Homelet, but you could have a priest of that pantheon or whatever who comes through.
Right.
Suddenly you've got raise dead spells. Now, do you need level? Here's another topic. Do you need level limits if the human characters have access to that kind of clerical power, those clerical powers for free, because they're the heroes of the story? Of course, they're going to get it for free if they're doing it from the town. What's the maximum level of a elven cleric or dwarven cleric, right? So
5th, 6th, 7th, something like that. Yeah,
they ain't coming back from the dead,
right? Well,
so
certainly elves, because they're spirits. Dwarves can be raised, but your point is valid.
If you play it like that, and also if you look in the monster manual and you see the way that certain creatures like orcs look at elves or dwarves, they ain't taking elven prisoners.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that actually in the game, if you run it in a certain way, that can make the game very exciting, but it also, maybe you don't need these level limits I was sort of suggesting, I was talking about before, if you play it in a certain way. This is another topic that we need to get back onto NPCs. Yeah. But I think there's a topic here about...
are level limits needed? Okay, I'm writing it down.
Yeah, and it's built into this idea of, well, what kind of world are we running? Yep. How do the human characters and the different... I mean, we're walking on broken glass here. We've got to be careful. But we go back to the racism, so-called racism table in the player's handbook. How do these different non-humans and humans sort of interact with each other? How do you build your party around this? And what happens when your party gets caught, or knocked out, or in a dungeon? Is it possible for them to escape? Are they going to be taken prisoner, and so on and so forth, right? So, I agree with you. I don't want to play. I don't want too much downtime rubbish in the adventure, but stuff like this, I think, can fit in quite smoothly. You go back to town. Yeah, okay, we visit the temple of St. Cuthbert, and we're going to give 10% of our treasure there. Okay, great. You still get the XP for that, and guess what? You get, healing and this and that. And hey, the cleric says that you seem to be under the effects of a curse or whatever. I don't know. So right. You can just throw in these little things that then make it meaningful to go to that place to heal up. To find out, oh, hang on, I appear to have a cursed sword or something. So previously you got these cursed magic items, and they're a complete bane. It's right. Like, nobody, my players are going to hate me if I start giving this stuff out. But in the right kind of game world, it can drive the game. It gets them to make decisions, and I don't know. I think it can work. Back to the topic of NPCs, however, how are we going to tie this up?
Well, I think if
Death Master, we were talking about the Death Master. This is how it spiraled out of control.
Well, because of the Death Master, I have seen games where people ran this as a player character. Okay, well that's great, because he has pretty decent hit points. He's got more than a magic user. We talked about if he kills himself on Halloween, he could become potentially a minor undead person, which I think is super cool. Again, this is super cool stuff. Like if he has cumulative resistance to sleep and charm as he goes up in levels. Okay, that's amazing. And he can second level. Okay, his second level at 4th level. So he's at 4th level. He has. I'm sorry. At 6th level, he can cast Attract Ghouls. So 6th level is about 20. So 26,000. I just attract ghouls.
Yeah, just most people want to attract girls, but
right. He's attracting ghouls. Exactly.
Yeah. Magnetic personality.
Yeah. He has. and he gets more powerful undead. He can create more powerful undead, and it's just pretty good stuff. And he has basically a fast path to becoming a lich.
Oh, okay.
Just like the necromancer, he's got 6th level lichdom. Let's see, 6th level. I'll go to that. Lichdom can be used on a willing high level. Oh, yeah, he's the one who can create a lich. So, it says the Deathmaster can cast a spell on himself. So there you go. So, you know where this is going. What's this player, all he cares about? I want to become a lich. That's all I want to do. So I love the flavor of these, and the story, and it's evocative, and you may have think of, that's the pros of it. But thank goodness they didn't put this in Unearthed Arcana, right? It was bad enough with the Barbarian. You want to talk about a class that was painful, if played right. Right? He gets experience points for breaking magic items. That's what a Barbarian's supposed to do. He's supposed to shun magic users. Okay. What are we doing?
Yeah. What kind of game are we playing?
What are we playing? What are we
We're
doing?
all barbarians.
Right.
We can have a thief, maybe. But...
And you could argue that the Paladin was really the first of these, shunning classes, prestige classes that if I'm here, you can't have evil or neutral people. I mean, it's still, I get the reason. For Barbarian, but it starts the antithesis of this. So
it breaks the game, or it moves the game into a new world that and it changes the rules. Essentially, rewrites the game.
Right.
It's no longer a dungeon and wilderness game. It's something else.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure there's people who do have a fine time doing it. But, for me, I want it to be the party part of it too is the players in old school games grow through the experience in the dungeons, not through off work, right? Either out of game or their class has a bunch of features. The goal is they build up from the game, they get magic items. That's how their character gets tailored, through the magic item acquisition, not through, that's why the later games emphasize, 5th edition as an example, they have magic items, but you don't get one till like you're really high level. Typically, because why would you need abilities that your class does? That's just
precisely
different.
Yeah. Well, the magic items in 1st edition, or the simple game, if you're a fighter in basic D&D, you're not going up. You've got should we use FACO? I don't know. Let's use FACO. You've got a FACO of 19 or something. I think in basic edition it kind of works out as, and it's not going to go up into. It jumps to 17 at level 4, right? So you're just getting hit points other than that as you go up levels. And every now and then, every few levels, you'll get a little bump or something. But it's what's that, 10%? I mean, it's really not making a lot of difference, particularly if the monsters are getting hard to hit as you go further into the dungeon. I don't know. I've lost track of what I was going to say there.
That's okay.
But
I think we've
magic items indeed. Yeah. So partly the simple game. Your first, your fighter, not your paladin, but your basic fighter or your thief or your magic user. Your magic user, it's a little different. They've got these spells which are kind of like abilities, but yeah, it's the magic items that give them a little boost. And in fact, the levels don't really do a lot for your average fighter, really. You get a few things, but not very much. It's just hit points, really. And if you're rolling your hit points truly randomly, well, you're not getting. You might just get one hit point. You go, you might have a fighter with 4 or 5 hit points at level 2. I mean, what is that? So, yeah, your magic items give you an advantage, but it's also the players are supposed to be growing as they travel through that dungeon master's world, through the dungeon, or and they're learning how to overcome certain obstacles within that game, right? Which is a very sort of a modern way of looking back at the old game, right? It's a kind of OSR reinterpretation of how that game might have been played. But there's probably some truth in that,
Right.
I mean, how many people walk around with Molotov cocktails ready, or vials of holy water, right? Based on what they know about the dungeon or the world that is currently being crafted, or that particular level of the dungeon. So this is also part of an interesting part of the game, I think, which is learning about the world being presented to them, the players learning about the world presented to them by the dungeon master, and trying to overcome that world. But then they know that once they've worked out those tricks and they've got solutions to it, then there's going to be new tricks and puzzles presented by the dungeon master that they have to find new ways of overcoming. And it's not always about hit points, right? And that is frustrating to certain types of players.
Yeah.
Right. But that's really exciting to me. I think that's interesting that you can have a game. One of the games I'm running, which is basically Beg Me, we've got a cleric. The best stat of the cleric is 14, and most of the others are not above. None of them are above 12, 11 above. Other than that, and there's a few that are 7 and 8. So there's a guy. His wisdom is 11. That's his best stat, prime requisite, and he's got a good charisma. But he decided to play that character and not re-roll it. And luckily for them, they actually have pretty good hit points.
Right.
But there's other characters with really damn awful hit points, right? So you hope that the character develops in a certain way or gets certain magic items and then becomes something that is actually interesting, right? And playing that character who has a penalty in combat. A cleric has a strength of 7 and a wisdom 11 and a charisma of 14. Filling the boots, filling out that character because they've found this magic item, that magic item, becomes a challenge. And
I like them both. I just changed my expectation of it. Now, if the dungeon had, type 5 demons and we're first level, then it doesn't matter what you have, right? Will the DM accommodate the type of characters you have? If you have a bunch of wimps that are average or slightly above average, you can't throw. And then again, that's why I don't like specialization, because specialization makes the fighters kill quicker. They are doing more damage. So then what does the DM typically do? Have to throw more monsters. Well,
you're talking about weapon specialization.
That's correct. Weapon specialization from the book that shall not be named. Another canon. As a player, I loved it. But once that became part of it, now it became more swingy. And of course, players love swingy. Well, swingy is not good for players.
There's another reason I don't like it. Here's another reason, is that you're locked into that weapon.
Right.
So you find, okay, I'm going to have a specialization in a longsword.
Well, you have
and you find this incredible, halberd of decapitation.
Right. Well, you'd be a fool to pick anything but a longsword, because if you know the rules, 70, if your DM is rolling randomly, which they shouldn't, but let's say they do, 70% of all swords are longswords. So don't pick the two-handed sword, because you're not going to get one unless they.
And the intelligent swords, of course, as well.
Right. So absolutely, you have to. And I want to play a dart. Well, you're never going to see a magic dart. I mean, they have them in the Unearthed Arcana, and you may be able to get one, but it's not like a longsword, which is going to be pretty much everywhere. So it made the game swingier, and thus the characters who are weaker got destroyed typically, and if
And the same can be said of allowing people to play these NPC classes like this
Right.
one. It destroys the standard character classes. It undervalue it changes the values of the game, and in that game the fighter will be undervalued, or the typical character classes then lose something compared to the new shiny thing.
Yep.
And that's the problem with adding too many character classes into the game, I think.
Yeah, I can't keep up with it anymore. So.
And that's your conclusion, is it, to today's episode?
Yeah.
I just can't keep up with it.
Well, I mean, I don't, I know a lot of the folks who watch our show and listen to it, they've played for a long time, but it was fun to go back and see this. Use it at your discretion. Certainly as an NPC, it's I don't have a problem with it. But if you do that, here's the problem with the NPC Deathmaster. If like you said, if you just describe them as this, withered guy or gal who's got these zombies around him, whatever, that's fine. But when they start pulling out, all this cool stuff, well, how did they get that? Then they'll be like, oh, because he's a death master. Well, I want to be a death master. No, you're a fighter. Eat it. You're just a stupid fighter, and you're dumb. Enjoy it. No, you don't get the cool flame tongue scimitar that they could have. A flame tongue scimitar. Who doesn't want a flame tongue scimitar?
Here's one of the things that I like about original D&D, or certain interpretations of original D&D, and you can see this in some of the Iron Falcon or Swords and Wizardry, is only the fighter necessarily, although it's sketchy as to whether this is true or not, but only the fighter gets the bonuses to damage, to hit, for strength,
right,
for dexterity for missile weapons. And in fact, the strength and the dexterity both mount together with missile weapons in certain interpretations of original D&D, which means that opening volley is really powerful, and strength damage is used on bows and so on. So there's certain interpretations that make the fighter very powerful, and then the ranger and paladin don't actually get access to that strength and thing. Because they have something else. Now, you can see that in the monk class in a way, right? You can still see that in the way that the monk plays out in AD&D. It's like, you don't get anything for armor class or for strength or for... well, no, because they have all these cool abilities. And that was one way of interpreting the rules, was that, no, you don't get these things, because that's what the fighter gets, or that's what somebody gets, So there's something to be said about that kind of game where the fighter is a fighter. They have special access to that, and your subclass fighters aren't fighters. There's something else,
right?
And as soon as you start stacking that, as soon as you allow a paladin with 18,100 strength that gets all those bonuses, why would you want to play anything else?
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just checking the stream just to make sure everything's still working. So anyway, I think that's the issue with whether it's NPC classes, prestige classes,
or any other kind of class,
or any other classes. If you just have a proliferation of them, the tailoring becomes in the initial creation, as opposed to the adventurers creating the characters. That's because, again, with a magic item, you could give, this sword does teleport once a day. Well, now he's a magic user, as an example, or cure light wounds, or whatever the case may be. You allow customization of the characters through the magic items, and if
it doesn't work, you bring in a disenchanter,
right,
or whatever.
Yeah, if it's OP, or you work around it, but you don't. All this class proliferation incentivizes looking at your character as a series of steps and optimizing builds. Right? They have these character builds. You didn't have that in old school D&D as much. The best you could do was max out your stats or try to find, more, but it was always magic items. It wasn't, and how do you get magic items? Through adventure. That's why I don't have magic shops. I don't want them to go to the, to Ye Merry Magic Shop and get the Girdle of Storm Giant Strength. No, that's not how it works. You got to go find it.
It's a time bomb. So like you bring in these classes and you allow like new classes and unearthed arcanas and stuff. Well, no, because that's the 5th edition thing as well. Isn't it? Like
that's right.
Arcana.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, that's right.
Yeah. So, but it's the same principle. Is that you bring in this new shiny thing that's actually lots more power, and you create this power creep. Now it's a ticking time bomb and what it does to the benefit of the game publishers is it means that the rules become such an absolute mess and so unbalanced that they have to produce a new edition, and that's beautiful for a publisher, but it's a pain in the butt for gamers, because it takes things out of the control of the dungeon. You can say it's optional. You can say that as much as you want, but it changes the nature of the democracy at your table, and instead of it being who's around your table decides on how the game is playing out, and you can only be a dictator, a tyrant DM for so long before the players are.
Yeah, you don't have any players. If they feel like you're taking their toys away, it's like anything. If they don't know the toys exist, it's a lot easier than if they know. Once you take the boy off the farm, they don't want to go back.
Yeah. So the internet basically is the corrosion in the system. It's the inbuilt ticking time bomb, because now we can make a new unearthed arcana every month and release it, and you're doing that on a world scale now. It's not like you buy people who are able to pick up a copy of Dragon magazine, access to White Dwarf. Those things, they weren't canon, but Unearthed Arcana is being published by that whoever has the rights nowadays. I don't know.
I think it's Wizards.
I know. It's
the company that shall not be the company that shall not be named.
Yes, and they're able to speed up or slow down the cycle, the life cycle of the game, and they can throw in this stuff. And I want to play the Aasimar, Paladin, whatever thing it build, and like, are you going to be the DM? Says no, that's not in my game world.
No, I have the opposite thing. I mean, when it's because that's a different game. It clearly is meant for random classes and all these. But we're not, the campaign's going to be 5 sessions long. We're going to play it for a few sessions, and you're going to get out of your system. You're going to do one or two cool things. But I'm not going to deal with your half Aasimar, half Kenku,
half Aasimar,
Paladin, Bard, subclass, Artificer, whatever, for 1 year campaign. I'm not going to deal with that. You want to, you saw something on the internet. You want to do something cool. Great. We're going to do it for 5.